Good morning, everybody. This is Kerry Davis-Munro and my colleague, Murtha. Morning, Will.
Morning. We were just having a good laugh, and which is no better medicine for your mental health.
No, we were having a brilliant laugh. So this is our Wednesday well-being session, coach to coach, where Will and I pick a topic that we're seeing with our clients or that we're seeing out there, and we bring it in and we talk in our very plain, down-to-earth language about what it means for us, what we see it meaning for our clients, and certainly give you some tools. And we're having a laugh there because we always try and keep these sessions to about 25 minutes. And I was just joking with Will that I had 40 slides today. So I gave him a little bit of a shock. I do have 40 slides on this topic, but don't worry, we won't be sharing those.
We're doing one, thankfully. Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about today, hot on the back of World Mental Health Day, which is slightly crazy that we keep having to have these days of awareness when actually it is they are topics that we should be dealing with every single day and that we should be able to talk about. But anyway, look, if they raise awareness and they get us talking and they help people, then all well and good. So what is mental health? And I think that the stigma that we've come to attach to that in recent years is poor mental health. What we understand by that usually is poor mental health. So I've got a little definition for you. A person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being constitutes mental health. Yeah. So it's our thoughts, our feelings, and our mood. Yeah. All together. And you and I will, when we meet somebody, in some ways, I think I said to you years ago when I was training, someone said to me, "Oh, well, look, we're not so much interested in people's feelings. We're interested in the action they're going to take." And you and I have discussed this many, many times. How can we possibly understand and get people to move and take action and develop mindset if we don't understand their starting point and where they're at? So we all have mental health, Will, don't we? It's just whether we wake up on a 1, and the day, we actually can't get out of bed and we're forcing ourselves and we're having that, come on, you can do it today. Or whether we're bouncing out saying, yay, we got another day ahead of us. There's a scale, Will, isn't there?
I mean, the thing is, first of all, the best image, because I love images, they do speak 1,000 words. And the best image to think of mental health, a bit like mindset, because that's obviously linked to mental health, is to imagine the iceberg. When you're going along, you see an image above the water, a few meters of ice out the water, but the iceberg might be going down 50, 100 meters, in the Antarctic. And that's the way mindset, that's the way mental health. It's important because what we see in outside world where people smile and we get that iconic kind of, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. They're not fine. It's just the facade they put on. So if someone was to say to me in a couple of sentences, what is mental health? I would say it's really about our emotional, it's our psychological, it's our mental, and it's our physical health. That for me is overall mental health, because people will say, why do you bring kind of physical into it? Well, actually our physical, as we know, with our chemicals and hormones, is so plugged in to our well-being. In the case of obviously the last few years research with understanding where so much of the good hormones, serotonin, comes from our gut with our food and the rest of it. So we've got to bring the physical into it. We mustn't put it out there. And I think the other bit is our mindset is basically how we see the world, how we feel the world, how we interact with the world. Our mental health, if I'm looking at it from a client point of view, I'm trying to see what their bounce back is like, what their resilience is like. When they meet adversity, are they crushed, or have they got that moment to take a pause and a reflection and bounce back? How do they basically handle extreme stress? Game of snakes and ladders. Unfortunately, we don't have one snake, one ladder. When we play the game of life, we have 4 snakes. And if there's 5 big things happen to us in a row, it can take us from the top of the board game to the bottom. And what we've got to be careful of is that making sure that we've got that bounce back, that mental health tools, philosophy, mindset, life rules, whatever we want to call it, to kind of drill into when we need it most. Because we've got this misconception, Kerry, haven't we, that mental health is either out there, like other people have got mental health issues and they're visual, and we might not have. It's a scale. It's not an either or, is it?
Definitely not. And I love it that you introduced very quickly the physical, which has reminded me actually of something that I saw on World Mental Health Day. There's a doctor that I think you and I both follow, and I'm not going to be able to, for the life of me, remember who it is, but he talks about the brain. And he says we can't really even talk about mental health and mental well-being without actually getting a picture and understanding your brain health. So
Dr.
he says
Amen?
we should.
Dr. Amen?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
it. So he did
Yeah.
a little post saying we really should all be talking about brain health and mental health in a very different way, because your mental health is your brain health. And you know, I talk a lot about the physical, and our physical affects our mental, and we're going to talk about that. You know, our gut manages 90% of our serotonin, and most of our messages go from our gut to our head, not the other way around. We think with his brain on legs, you know, our mental well-being is just what's going on here. It's definitely not. It's controlled elsewhere around your body.
Yeah.
And I think from your point of view and my point of view, Will, when we coach, I know we coach, and I spell this with a W, holistically, don't we? It's about the whole body. And one of the things I always say is we're all just a mass of chemicals, and either those massive chemicals and hormones are all working right, and we're punching in the right numbers, and it's, you know, little tick on the slot machine each time, and we're getting a row of juicy fruits, or actually we're punching things in and it's all mismatched and we're just not winning. We both love visuals, don't we? So I guess in a coaching context where we work a lot with mindset, we're coaching clients through emotions and mental challenges to achieve the changes and get to where they want to be, to get to a better place, aren't we? But we should say that conversely, we're also coaching people who are in the strongest and most resilient place of their lives. And we're coaching them on how to maintain it and how to challenge themselves and how to move further forwards, aren't we?
I mean, from a coaching point of view, I always try to keep it simple in three ways. So coaching clients for me are coming at me in three levels. I call it the kind of they're absolutely desperate and everything's falling apart. That's on the bottom of the seabed. You know, they come to me and they're in this funny transition stage of their life. They're moving from one stage to another. That to me is their kind of, you know, they're on the just above the water. We're trying to build a new foundation, a new platoon. You know, they're kind of okay, but nothing's really sign of working for them, and they're certainly not flourishing and thriving. And then the other level is people that just are on a really good wave, and they've really got the wind behind the sails, and they're really doing lots of high performance habits, and their life is flourishing, they're thriving, and, you know, they've got the tools to deal with whatever's coming at them, adversity wise. And, you know, I think what we've got to realize, coming back to mental health, is that it's in all of us. Excuse me. And it's in all of us. We all suffer mental health issues at different times because it depends what is happening to us and what is going on around us, our environment. I'll give you an example. You know, most of us can have one or two big plates spinning on our stage of life. When it becomes 5, 6, 7 plates, even the most resilient amongst us get completely overwhelmed. We imagine that we can naively kind of think our way out or work our way out of the problems, don't we? You know, instead of doing 8 hours, I'll put in 11 hours for all week and I'll work my way out of the problem. Well, that kind of worked many years ago when we were looking at productivity. Remember 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was all about productivity and effectiveness kind of studies where you could find more time. Well, pretty much now we've squeezed the orange dry, haven't we? And we've got no more spare capacity. So I think, you know, if too many plates, too many challenges show up, we can surprise ourselves and the people around us by even we can crash and burn. Even you as a coach and me with, you know, 40, 50 years experience between us, you know, we in personal development, we can still crash and burn if we get too many, you know, all you need is a death here, a bad situation there, something wrong with your children there, a death of a mother. You know, we've all gone through this last few years.
Yeah.
It just takes all those kind of snakes on the snakes and ladders board to arrive at once. And before you realize you're on the seabed and you're really struggling in the dark.
Yeah. And I think I was talking about this to a business yesterday in terms of stress and anxiety. the self-awareness is really important, because I guess, when we look back to our ancestors, they had stress in the moment if they had to run or if they had to do something, but it wasn't ongoing. And what we deal with most of the time now with our overwhelm is this constant cortisol. So I always say to clients, and when I'm in businesses, understand if some of the triggers, some of, the sweating, the trembling hands, the feeling your heartbeat, is it just because something's happened that day or that week which you can move past? Or is it something which has become a chronic condition for you? And actually, if it's ongoing and you're waking up every day feeling exhausted, and if every day your hands are trembling, then actually this is the point that you really need to think, gosh, I'm going to take action. And you and I were talking before we came on. I had something last week that really shook me. And I had to work through my own emotions and understand what had happened for me to be able to process it. And it's all about having the time, isn't it, to be able to process it. And luckily, because of what we do, I think I am usually quite resilient. People have always said that. So I am lucky. But when we're thrown, we have to just go through the process ourselves, don't we? What did that throw up for me? What are the emotions here? What happened there? How did it make me feel? How am I going to react to it? And how am I going to change that? Because there's lots of factors affecting our mental health. And you've talked about a few of them. But there's also situational, and then there's disposition, isn't there? I do think that in my experience, I see some people who have a disposition and they are predisposed to being quite low, in my experience. And then some people who definitely, without doubt, are depressed, but we can see that it's the situation that they are in that's causing that low mood. And there is a difference, isn't there, in our experience, Will?
I think the situation thing's interesting because, situation, our outer environment, and also where are we at from the situation of our mindset at the moment. That's still situational, isn't it? And I think the questions that we have to start asking ourselves sometimes in society, and we see this all the time with our experiences, do we value good mental health? Do we pay attention to it? Do we respect it? Mostly I would say no, we don't. We're so busy doing, achieving, striving, repeat, press the button, repeat, the question that I will always ask clients is, do you have reflection time to slow down? Like you said about processing that really big stuff last week, do you extract the gold from the experiences, a lot of it rubbish, that you've dealt with? Do you allow yourself to slow down? That's good mental health practice. Do you have chill time? And what I mean by that is to do nothing. Not kind of, don't forget, time on your phone, scrolling on your phone, Netflix or being online does not count as chill time. That does not. People have got to get a mental health perspective that, the stimulation that's happening on your phone or when Netflix with your, your psychological drama or online on the web, that is not chill time. That is not chill time. So, what you really need is proper repair, replenish time, which is good selfish, which is self-care, which is self-compassion, which is having that bath, going for that walk, having that retreat day, having time with your children, taking your pet out for a walk. That is proper repair and replenish time. And what we've got to do is realize the difference, what is feeding our good mental health. Also, I see it all the time. People that have got really good balance, I call it harmony, with their mental health, they tend to their passions, they tend to their purpose, they tend to what they love in life, they tend to their relationships, they tend to their art, their craft, what makes them feel alive, their creativity. People that have got bad mental health usually don't tend to ... And it's a bit like, you've got to see it like a plant, haven't you? If you've got a plant and you don't put it in the sunshine and you don't feed it water, it will die. And our mental health is exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think sometimes just stopping to, most people we work with are, again, we talk about overwhelm all the time. If you're in overwhelm, you haven't got a stop button to suddenly sort of say to yourself, what's going on here? What's dragging me down? And I was listening again to the food pharmacy with Dr. Mark Hyman yesterday, and he was talking about, he talks about food and food feeding you, and that's a massive part of our mood, because it really is. It makes the right chemicals. But he also talks about relationship food. What are we getting from a relationships? Situational food. What are you getting fed from your situation? Work, career, food. What are you getting fed there? Because it's all of our, it's not just a diet of what we're eating anymore. It's a diet, as you say, of social media. It's a diet of what's on the web. It's a diet of what's on Netflix. And don't forget, other things that that affect us over the last few years that we've heard a lot about is loss, obviously, and we feel loss in many, many different ways. We might be coming through some trauma. We might be dealing with some childhood stuff that we really actually haven't processed yet, and we need to pack away. And Riff talks about the psychological factors. And so he talks about autonomy, having control. And I think taking control back over the last few years is big for positive mental well-being. Environmental issues. I mean, I think that is having a big factor. Things really, I know, trigger me in terms of the environment, but environmental mastery means having a real understanding and knowing where you are and being able to, again, have this autonomy and control. And then he talks about relationships, purpose, as you've said there. And the other thing that he says in terms of this psychological wellness is self-acceptance. And I guess we find ourselves coaching through every single one of those, Will, don't we? I could name 10 clients and pick one of those things for every single one of them right now.
I think, someone asked me on Monday, well, a couple of people actually asked me on Monday, because it was Mental Health Awareness Day, why is mental health crashing? And I kind of just went through a very simple kind of shopping list. Overwhelm is why mental health is crashing, too much. So if you write down in your journal, if you do journal practice, write down, what am I doing too much of? Too much stimulation often, too much expectations, and that could be of ourselves or others. Too many box sets on TV, too much social media, which will obviously engineer too much comparison, and too much FOPO, fear of other people's opinions, too much kind of doing, too much being, too much striving, too much kind of racing. We're kind of doing too much. And another big one that I came up with on Monday was decision fatigue. We've got too many decisions to make, and we have decision fatigue because the world's coming at us with all this change really quickly, and we're having to kind of make quick changes. Humans don't like change, that's the number one rule, isn't it? And, we've all got decision fatigue. And we've got to get away from, our mental health is really about, William Bridges always talked about this. He said, when you're going through massive shifts in society, it will mean that you go through shifts. And if you understand the change process, which is what everything that we do, really, if you want new beginnings, you've got to start with an ending. And what does that mean? It means you've got to look at what you need to let go of, what you need to say goodbye to, what you need to kind of just cut off. And it might be some friendships, relationships, it might be a job, it might be whatever it is, a way of thinking, a way of feeling, a behavior. So, if you want a beginning, start with the ending. And the process is, William Bridges is so right on this for the last 40 years, because we live it every day in our jobs. Transition is always about the ending, then the kind of funny bit in between when you're not quite sure who you are, where you're going, and then the new beginning on the other side. That is good mental health. Good mental health is understanding that we're all going through a process of change. You can fight and you can bitch and you can claw on as much as you like, telling the world that you don't like change, but it's coming for you whether you like it or not.
And with that, I'm just listening, thinking again, something that we always say, it's again, what story sometimes. I mean, obviously, look, we know people who are in very, very difficult situations, and they can only change things bit by bit by bit. But there's always something when we get to the end of the day, that we can look at and think, okay, the practice that I talk about is EGS. So it's what did I enjoy? What was I grateful for? What did I feel satisfied about? But, it's about the story each day that you're telling yourself. And if that becomes a week, and if that becomes a month, and if that becomes years, then actually it's time to take control and think, right, okay, well, what do I want that story to be instead? And a very good friend of mine who's a psychologist says, and if people at that point then don't change anything, then something in that story actually is serving them. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get that totally.
He always says that to me. So, and I think that's very, very interesting. And let's not forget that, when we're struggling, it can show up in many ways. Last week for a very short time, I'm questioning the fear of other people's opinions. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can feel myself doing that. And then going through the process of the emotions that triggers. So I think that for us as coaches, you and I work through a lot in terms of the emotions. And I do this a lot with heart math, controlling the emotions, managing the emotions to make appropriate decisions and move that through our brain in the right way. Because again, this is brain health and how we manage that. And you've mentioned your journaling, but I'm going to just see if I can share my screen here, so that I can show you. One of the biggest things for me is foods. Yeah. We know that with serotonin. And this is an interesting thing because of the articles that have come out recently in terms of antidepressants. It's not actually the serotonin and the change of chemicals in the body in the antidepressants which they've found to be working. Not to say I should say that they don't work, but actually in our own bodies we know that our serotonin boosts our mood. And these are the sorts of foods. Tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin. These are the sort of foods that we can be eating. A friend of mine actually has put himself on a beetroot diet, and he said he's lost weight. He feels great. He gets up in the morning with more. Honestly, a coloured, beautiful food. Lots of fantastic chemicals in beetroot. Green tea as well. So we need to really be thinking about these good probiotic foods. We need to be thinking about the nuts, the whole foods, and the sorts of foods that make us feel good. And there are many. Food can make us feel good, but serotonin isn't in everything. It's only in, the really good stuff. And this is the reason, Will, why we reach for the dark chocolate. Yeah, this is the reason. Dark chocolate really boosts our serotonin. So for me, taking control of the physical has such a massive effect on the mental. And we can't say that without also noting the things like alcohol, sugars, the things that give us a false dopamine hit that take us high and then crash us low.
Well, that's what I would call the pleasure false chemicals. False pleasure will give you a very short-term hit and then make you feel bad about yourself after. That ice cream, that chocolate, the rest of it. Great. You get that lovely pleasurable moment or moments, and then suddenly, but you have a good shake, as in not your body, obviously drinking a good shake with, root vegetables and fruits and the rest of it. And look how you feel in the hours afterwards. Or if you've eaten a really good nutritious meal, you feel really good afterwards about yourself, but your body kind of keeps a score, doesn't it? So it kind of tells you, your body is communicating with you. It's not kind of, just laying there doing its thing. Your body's kind of giving feedback to your brain and back to your heart, and it's telling you whether, that was good for you or not. It's just a lot of us don't slow down enough to listen to that signal, do we?
Not at all. And I guess when we're in overwhelm and when we are tired, we don't do the things that actually come back to basics that make us feel good. We don't take the exercise because we're too tired, and we know that exercise along with good sleep and good food, makes the chemicals work correctly around our body. So it's that quote that I just say over and over again, Zig Ziglar: the biggest mistake that people make is to swap what you really want, in life with what you want right now. And I think when we're in overwhelm, that's what we come down to. And obviously there's so much, we're going to finish now, but there's so much else that we can do. Other ways to boost these chemicals. We say it again and again and again. Get outside, find your passion, sing, Dance. I'm off to do some dancing. Laugh, like Will and I always find time to laugh, don't we, Will? I mean, I think that's
We have to.
so great. Cuddle a lot. Get a massage if you're not in a relationship. Get somebody,
Oxytocin.
We need physical touch. And think this time of year about vitamin D very strongly, and magnesium, which is responsible for so many of the body's chemicals and processes. So lots that we can do. But we haven't got time to talk about all of those in detail at all. Will, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to leave it at 10 o'clock. If anybody else wants to reach out to us, it's a triggering topic, I know. What are your thoughts on what we've talked through today? What are you struggling with? If there's anything we can support you with, or anything that you've been triggered on, as usual, do get in touch. Do give us your thoughts. If not, Will and I will be back same time next week with Wellbeing Wednesday. Will, thank you so much.
We'll be back next week, and it's menopause week, so interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
See
going
you
to
next
tackle
week.
that head on. Thanks, Will. Bye.